Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we take the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling. Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines.
Yay.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
All right, we have a quorum. We'll move on to item 4 already. Public participation, public comments. Is there any member of the public here this evening that would like to speak on any matter that he or she would like? All right, hearing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda this evening. Only 2 items would be the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of May 21st and the minutes of the board meeting on the 28th. If there isn't any discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Take the roll.
Trustee Hines.
Yay.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
All right, that carries. And then at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of an employee pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C1, and then also to discuss the acquisition of real property pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C5.
So moved.
Moved, I have a second?
Second.
Second by Marisak. Take the roll.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines.
Yes.
Why should you be
All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. We'll move on to items for separate action. Item A is the village administrator contract that you guys were all, that was distributed earlier. If there's any discussion on this, we can have this at this time. If there is no discussion, and just for clarity, this is a contract with Jeff Zoful to be our full-time administrator. So, if there's any discussion on the item, I'm excited to move forward with this and
Welcome.
kick things off. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Pete,
Move.
second by Marisak.
Trustee Hines.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
This is where you walk in front.
Oh,
And
shake
shake
hands,
hands.
raise hands.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to, you can,
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Look forward to the opportunity.
We need to get a new name thing for there.
We'll
We got any white out?
We will.
get a new one.
all right, I'll move forward with the main point of the meeting, actually, is the dispatch service agreement with KenCom. And who's got a report on
I will talk about
that? I'll
it.
turn this over to Administrator Zoful.
Thank you, President Brawley. This is an item, obviously, we've discussed. You've seen the contract before. There has been a change since the last time you saw it, when it came before you earlier. It was $219,000. You'll see this says $253,000. There have been changes since then in our call volume, which has driven that change. It's a new process for us, and we're trying to work our way through it. When we provided them with a list of our calls, we broke them down into different categories, and they had put the 13,000, which was one set of our calls, in there. As we talked further, we thought that number, was good. As we talked further, some of the other categories also would come into play as something they would charge us for. And so we realized what we had in there was not going to be a sufficient call volume for what we will probably generate during the year. So we've now adjusted it to 15,000, and we have a 30% leeway in there. So it takes us to about 19,500 within there. That's really the big change since the last time you saw it, and Armando and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on it. KenCom has already approved the agreement from their end, and they're just waiting for us to approve it to get started on getting all the technical issues worked out.
Well, can I ask questions? Mike?
Yeah, are you done? Yes.
How does this rate compare with the rates of surrounding communities?
That are in KenCom. The other communities are paying less as a result of court action.
Okay.
So it's dictated by a court decision. They are paying less. What we are paying is very comparable to what other communities are paying at CANECOM or TRICOM. It's actually lower than what we would pay anywhere else.
And just a little bit of history on that, we actually went to other dispatch centers, right, and received.
Correct. We went to
basically quotes.
City of Aurora, CANECOM, TRICOM, and KENCOM.
And this was the best option for us, and at 253,000? What, do you know what our annual budget was last year for the dispatch? It was like
It's around 800,000.
800,000, so it's considerable savings, nonetheless.
What was what occurred where the other communities, why are they getting a reduced rate? What problems occurred or what? Because as I understand it, with half of our community being in Kendall County, we pay a certain fee for KenCom, even though we weren't using it. So the Kendall County residents
There's a public safety
are
tax
paying this
in Kendall County.
public safety tax. Was that taken into consideration during this agreement, or is that part of what the lawsuit was about?
I believe that was part of what the lawsuit was about. Obviously, we were not involved in it, but that's my understanding.
Regardless of the other side of the table, this is the best offer that we received and the best situation for us. Outside of that, now, I know that tax, I don't know a lot about that, but I know enough to know that doesn't go to just dispatch, it also goes to the courthouse, this kind of thing, so
The
it's all
sheriff's
public.
office, the courthouse.
Right, so our residents are getting, making use of that tax that they're paying, so. But I understand your concern.
Have there ever been any service interruptions? And if there are service interruptions, what is the process? And I know we speak briefly about this the other night. What is the process to go, I guess, make sure that those service interruptions don't actually affect service?
With KenCom, just when we initially were researching all the facilities, the other regional facilities, we did speak with the other chiefs of police from Plano, Yorkville, and Oswego, and specifically asked if there were any service issues that they had, and they all said that they had no issues with the service that KenCom provided, which was clearly one of the most important things that we wanted to make sure as we move forward with that. So in that regard, they didn't discuss any issues like, hey, we've had this or that, and there weren't any service interruptions that they denoted. So that was something we researched and were told they were all happy with what they received from KenCom.
And I understand when I read through this, and I thought I had made notes, but apparently it was a little too late, that if there is a service interruption, they're not responsible for any of the costs that we incur to make it right, so that we can continue to have coverage. They're not responsible for any of those costs.
No,
If there's a service outage on their end, something happens on their end, we have no leg to stand on it to go back to them to cover our costs.
I think it depends. If it's something where they've clearly breached the agreement, then there's the potential for that. But if you're talking about the service outages, which I don't know if they happen routinely or not, but assuming they do, like my cell phone interrupts periodically, then no, we wouldn't have recourse against them, just like I don't have recourse against my phone company.
But if it went down for 2 weeks and we had to scramble and come up with a better plan,
If it went down for 2 weeks, we have bigger problems. I mean, seriously, they have backups upon backups. If that were to occur, something else has happened.
all right, then that falls into like a breach of contract
It could.
situation. Okay.
I had a couple questions. One, the $40,000, and I remember specifically when we started talking, I said, let's not get like Oswego in Yorkville and get stuck once you say you're coming, and all of a sudden they up the price and we pay an extra 40, 50,000, and everybody assured me that wouldn't happen, and here we are with 40,000. So it's got to be something Is it for calls of service? Is it communications?
That's directly related to the calls for service. Again, at 13,000 with a 30% leeway, put us at 15,900. We estimate we're between 18 and 20,000. That's taking out Sugar Grove and the calls that we generate. Again, this is a new venture for both sides. So as we looked at it, and we did speak with Oswego on how operationally, the first year they had a higher call volume, but on how you conduct your business and what we're charged with without compromising any officer safety, some calls would be different. That's why, after their first year, their call volume went down significantly from, like, let's say 50,000 to 30-some thousand. So as we looked at it and said, okay, we think we're around 20,000, to go to 15,900, we would like to do that, but if we go to 15,000 with a 30%, now we're at 19,500, that's where we are without having to put added pressure on ourselves to make sure we conduct business as they do without any extra leeway for ourselves. So it's just kind of giving us a bigger cushion where we want to err on the side of caution. And if we pay more now, then it would be, I think I would agree with that, where if we said, hey, after the first year, we thought we would be around 16,000 the way we conduct our services, but we ended up at 18, but now we got hit with a bigger bill, then we would be saying, then you would say, see, that's where we told you. But I think now being proactive about it and looking and saying, we're better off being safe than sorry, but I'm definitely more comfortable with 19.5 versus 16.9, entering in a new venture where, we want to make sure we're still keeping the service levels up.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to predict how many calls in the future, but, excuse me, we should have known exactly how many calls we had in the past, so that back in February, we didn't come out with a cheaper price and then get hit with a higher one. And I guess maybe Steve or Jeff can explain this. Yearly fees, like he was talking about this, 15,000 a year, and you get a 30% rolling. I don't get, explain that a little better.
That just means, we try to give them a baseline, because they don't know how many calls we have. So we try to say, here's where we are, but so we said 15,000 plus that 30%. But if one year we're at 21,000, they're going to average it. So if we have one bad year, if there's a tornado that takes out half the town, our calls are going to spike. That won't necessarily, throw it out. So they average it out over a multi-year period. So if we have one bad year, we still stay within that 15,000 plus 30%.
So it's a range of calls for the same price.
Right.
And it sounds like the original price, Denny said the 219, was based off of a lower call volume.
based
So
off- we were
we've
looking
upped the
at
call volume to
13,000.
make sure that we're safe.
We weren't sure what they would classify as basically that counts as a call, because not everything does. It's like I said, we broke it out in several categories, and they plugged in the 13,000, so we thought we were good there. But as we talked about it more, we didn't feel that we were actually going to be in that range, didn't feel comfortable with that.
Now, if our call volume goes down, is this price going to go back down?
No.
No.
Now, after 5 years, you could review it and then renegotiate, but this is trying to set a fair bargain based on unknowns on both sides. But I think historically, and Armando can probably speak to this, our call volumes don't go down.
No. They historically don't. But to address a point that you're saying, again, it's how we conduct business as well, because let's say what an incident is mean now what we're going to be charged for. As we have our own dispatch center, you have the luxury to say, okay, every time we do A, B, or C, we call it in and generate a number, an incident. Well, some things are going to change. That if I'm training someone and I'm in the office and I say, hey, put me on training right now, okay, that's fine. We keep track of that. Well, if we do that at a regional facility, then we get a charge for that. So some things are how we're going to conduct and keep track of what we can in-house versus what we actually will call. Again, without any, we're not going to jeopardize any officer safety, but it's a learning curve of what we are going to be tracking and not tracking. So that's where we're better off erring on the side of caution with a higher incident than the other way.
Well, like I said, well, it has increased over the amount we had originally brought to you. I mean, there are reasons for that, but even at that amount, it's a very good deal financially for the village. At 19,500 calls in the 253, it comes out to just under $13 a call, which is a very reasonable per-call rate if you look at what some of the other regional facilities charge.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's with the 5-year contract, which the other facilities couldn't provide, because let's say at a different one, we were gonna pay $380 versus $250. That was based on who they had in their pool, but they couldn't guarantee the next year someone didn't leave their pool. And if they left, then we pay more to cover the difference. Here, this is what we're paying for those 5 years. So in that regard, it's a really, that's a pretty strong deal.
And this 253, how does it compare to what we paid previously?
Well, previously, we've done it ourselves, but our share of it has probably been around 700,000. I mean, when you figure what we got back from charging other entities.
It's my understanding that KenCom will enter into an agreement with the fire departments until this agreement is set. Is that correct?
They were waiting because they figured ours would probably be the most complex of the agreements, and so they figured if they started and got this one done, that it would work for the fire districts. But they can get those moving rather quickly, they've said. They're ready to go.
When does ours start? I mean, it's not, I'd hate to see it start in a month and have these two fire departments both with guns at their head saying, okay, you guys got to come for this kind of price because Montgomery's closing down in a month.
No, I mean, we had to give 6-month notice to the fire districts. I mean, we don't estimate we figure September is probably around when we're looking at.
Yeah.
When did we give notice to the fire department? I thought everything was started back in February, so is that when we gave notice?
Back in February, late February, early March.
Yeah, I believe that's the right time frame.
Okay.
So 6 months from that time would be the notice we gave them, but the time frame from when if the contract is signed today, would be looking at 90 to 120 days. But a lot has been already put in place, and we're stopped where we are till the contract is signed.
And we're not going to abandon the fire districts. I mean,
It's not us
Want that.
abandoning them, it's
It's
not
forced.
giving them a real clean shot of,
well, I mean, we've given them.
not our fault, but it's ChemCon's fault, and it's just, I guess, the way they do business.
I mean, we've
They're
tried.
noted for it, so,
We've tried to give them notice. I mean, Chief Myers went on a couple of the visits with us to some of the other facilities. So, I mean, we're trying to work with them.
I mean, it sounds like they're going to lose some negotiating power on their pricing.
Right.
Once this is done, because
How-
we just took the legs out from underneath them.
Well, wait a minute, I don't think that's necessarily accurate. Everyone knows that the village of Montgomery is getting out of the business of dispatch. It's a question of when. We're not gonna not support these folks suddenly. You know, they're gonna keep using their dispatchers until we can get everybody timely moved over. But that doesn't change the fact that from the day you announced that you were moving, that everybody needed to know they had to go someplace else. So you haven't taken, by passing this agreement tonight, none of that universe of options has changed. It's just fulfilling it. Their bargaining position is the same today, tomorrow, and yesterday, which is that everybody knows they need to find a new location because we're going to be out of the business. So I don't think it's fair to say that we've harmed them.
Do the fire departments have to use KenCom?
No.
No.
I think they can use anyone they,
Have any preliminary costs been discussed with the fire departments? How does it affect the fire departments going forward? Does it cost more going forward than it did previously? Is it about the same?
Would that factor into your vote on this, on our contract? 'Cause it's kind
No,
of-
but we've got to worry about I mean,
Well, I understand we're not leaving anybody high and dry, and definitely concerned about our fire districts, because they serve our residents too, but fact is that this is a huge cost savings for us, we're getting out of the business, and they're free to negotiate with whoever they want. The hope is that,
you
If it's
know,
moving to KenCom and they're having increased personnel, that potentially the cost there wouldn't be as excessive for them, but it's, I don't want to hypothesize on what they're going to do.
we have to vote on this and we have to get this approved, but no one's asking the big question. Maybe this isn't the time to ask the big question. But the question is, what has got us to here? What transpired or what occurred that got us to this point? Why did Sugar Grove pull out? What's going on? That's the question. Now, we're kind of, we have to pass this and get this going, but I'm still gonna continue to ask what happened and why are we in the situation that we're in? And I don't know the background of that because I wasn't on the board prior, but I'm gonna continue to ask those questions.
And I would encourage you to do that. Get in touch with the chief, with Jeff, Armando, and get the history on the thing. The rest of the board kind of lived through that previously, but.
And the other part of this is, you know, Denny and I are looking at each other thinking, we could be hurting their negotiating power. It could be helping theirs because now it's a nice little bundle. We're picking up Montgomery fire districts as well. It could work out to their benefit as well, but I don't know. And that's really not our concern, right? The fire districts aren't,
Right.
they're under a different entity.
Last question. Section 7. It's nice that we say it only costs us $250,000 or whatever, but Section 7 on 9/11 and surcharge, reading that says that all them will go to KenCom from now on, service fee.
Our E ETSB money will go,
So that's another $100,000, basically. So in other words, it's nice that it's costing us $250, but now they're also taking our 9/11 money, which I don't remember ever being brought up at any meeting. So you take that into consideration.
Now we're paying
that's-
$350.
Yeah, just, the price just raised. And back in February, none of that was discussed, and it was a great picture, 230,000 compared to almost 1 million. I mean, and now all of a sudden, it's coming back to where some of the figures are not coming through. So,
I don't remember whether or not that was discussed earlier. I mean, once we're no longer a 911 facility, we would not receive that money.
they would.
It will go to whichever county or whichever group we
Yeah,
align with.
whoever it was.
But it's also, don't forget that with that money came the responsibility to perform continued maintenance and enhancements. That obligation is likewise being transferred, so I don't think it's that you're losing $100,000. I mean, there might be some differential, Denny, certainly.
It could be, but I don't remember spending 100, 150 on things like that out there. I mean,
We haven't at this point.
we might from now on, because it's all 5 years old now, but the first 5 years,
Right, but well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not straight that you've lost $100,000 per your words. You've also lost some obligations too,
right,
so.
I understand that. But I'm just saying it, in February, it was a beautiful picture, and now it's starting to get a little fuzzy, should we say, but
What did the
you're right.
chief,
We'd
oh,
have to
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What did the chief tell us the first year we'd save 250 to 300,000?
That's what we figured the first year, because we were still paying dispatchers for part of the year. And then next year, when
In
we.
a year's time, we
audit,
paid dispatchers 300,000?
We pay them in excess of that in salary,
Grapes.
between salary and benefits. And that's the majority of the cost.
And then down the line, he says, he figures we'd save $500,000 a year.
But we're still responsible for the equipment, for,
No.
there's
Well, we're-
repeaters,
Per this, we'll be responsible for our equipment that we have, right?
and if
Yeah,
they
like-
make a
Expand on that,
change,
Armando?
The
if
radios.
they make a change, we're gonna have to upgrade all of our equipment? That becomes us. If they were to change and require some.
Our side of it, but do keep in mind that recently, all of those regulations were updated, and all of that equipment was updated very recently, so the odds of that happening again real quick is probably pretty limited.
if we ever run into that situation again, is it possible to keep some of our, the 9/11 fees?
I think it is. You know, if a unique situation arises that causes us to renegotiate, sure, it's a possibility.
Is there a way that if for some reason this isn't working out previously before the 5 years, that we can get out of this? Does it give us an out?
Only if
Or
there's
if
only
this,
there's a breach
if
of
this
contract
marriage
or-
doesn't work, can we get a divorce before 5 years?
I don't think so.
It would have to be something, from what I read, it would have to be something
Can we
glaring.
get an
It
annulment?
would be a breach of contract.
Well,
Have to be
if
something
it's not
significant.
working because there's an actual violation, yes, like you're saying, trustee Marisak. In the absence of that, probably not.
If you could, then there wouldn't be a contract, you know, it would be,
And then they could potentially raise our rates in 5 years and essentially hold us hostage and say, well, if you don't like the rates, you have to go someplace
Well, in
else.
5 years is a new contract.
it's a new contract.
Correct,
we
and
can-
in 4 years from now, you may want to position yourself to have some negotiating power if you feel that there's a danger of that.
And this 253 is the set price for the 5 years?
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit for us.
I was just gonna say, it is
5
locking it
years
into-
Budgeting purposes, it's not gonna go up assuming our calls don't increase dramatically.
And that's, I understand that, because based upon what Deputy Chief Sanders had said, you know, if we monitor our calls and can potentially limit some of those, I don't anticipate it going up substantially. You said we were around 18 to 20,000 in the last few years anyway,
Correct.
so.
Right. And that's why with the new venture, it'd be better to err on the side of caution, or we would say, well, we overlooked something, or we, you know, that gives us a truer look at where we're at, so.
Any other comments or discussions on the item? Okay, open up the floor for a motion to approve the dispatch service agreement with KenCom.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Marisak,
Second.
second by trustee Lee.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
And the motion carries 4-0. That's the end of the agenda, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Take the roll, please.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.